Hey everybody, this is Mike over at Wilwood Disc Brakes. We're at the SEMA 2023 show. We're here with Koenig and we're gonna go through some of our different brake kits and talk to you guys about wheel fitment and caliper sizing for Koenig wheels. So when we're developing a brake kit, what we're trying to do is get the back side of the rotor is close to any steering or upper and lower ball joints that we possibly can. That's gonna move everything this way and get that caliper this way so that we'll have more wheel fitment options. So for wheel clearance, the big deal is in off-road applications, 17-inch wheel. So what we've done is we've packaged quite a few of our different offerings to fit your new Bronco, which is our new product, Ford Raptor, God, there's so many other ones, Toyota. So to get a real upgrade in that smaller wheel, it's super important that you get as much clamping force as possible. Well, we went to direct mount because there was no room, radial height, to fit a bracket. So we're always trying to push the envelope in as far as we can when designing a brake system so that it gives us more clearance and less overhang of the caliper to the face of the hat or rotor where the wheel's gonna mount. Okay, so a misconception that a lot of people have is, I need big brakes because it's gonna stop better. And what people don't realize is that calipers don't get bigger because they stop better. They typically get bigger because they hold a bigger brake pad. So if you look at these two calipers, they're both 6-piston, but this one has got 5.06 square inches of clamping force, whereas this Aerolite caliper has only got 4.06. So you wonder why? Well, it's because this caliper is used on a larger diameter rotor, so it has more torque. The reason it's larger is because we need to put a larger brake pad so that it'll do track events and some racing, because we turn this from a street caliper into a race caliper. So what would happen is, let's say it's gonna be like a late model Mustang. If you took this out onto the track, the brake pad is much smaller and has less volume, but it has more clamping force because it fits a smaller rotor. Whereas this is gonna have a less clamping force because it's on a larger torque lever arm, which is gonna be the bigger rotor, but it's a much thicker, more volume, almost twice the volume, so it'll last longer.
So how does that affect stopping power?
Well, it's all numbers. So at the end of the day, we have to relate what the bore size of the master cylinder is to the leverage of the pedal, then bring that down to what the diameter of the rotor is to what the square area of the caliper is. So there's a lot of math that goes into a true performance brake system, and a lot of people don't realize bigger is not always better. Okay, so a question that comes up quite often is, should I upgrade my brakes? And in some cases, you really don't need to. Maybe just a good set of brake pads, steel braided lines, good brake fluid. What we'll typically do is ask the customer what they're going to do with the vehicle. So what are you gonna do with your little EG hatchback? You know, is it gonna be more of a stance car with a big wide wheel and you're just gonna cruise it? Then you don't really need this unless you want the aesthetic. But if you say, no, I'm gonna put some Koenig wheels on it, I'm gonna lighten up the wheel package, I'm putting a 200 tread wear tire, it's still gonna be my daily, but I'm gonna do track days hopefully once a month, right? Well, that's when you really wanna start looking at doing a brake upgrade to a fixed mount caliper. That means that the caliper's not floating side to side. Less compliance means that you get a better brake pedal feel, okay? And then going to a 2-piece hat rotor, now we're gonna dissipate all that energy that's being put into the disc, the cast iron, and it's gonna dissipate it into the lighter hat assembly, which is made out of aluminum. So now we're gonna be dissipating a bunch of that thermal heat, which is becoming a problem because you're tracking the car. Now, one thing that you always have to look at is, for daily driving it, you may need to use more of a street pad. But then before you go and do your track day, switch out to a track day pad. A question that always comes up is, hey, I bought a late model car. It came with a really good factory brake system. Do you guys make anything that's gonna be an upgrade? Well, It's where we need to start asking the questions. What are you expecting out of the car? What are you going to do with the car? What size wheel? What type of tire? If it's going to be an aggressive car that you're going to be doing, say, track days with, that's going to be more the customer that we're going to explain some of the upgrades that a system like this is going to offer you. So a lot of the factory calipers that come on these late model cars, they're a good brake, but they don't have a lot of things built into them, like being a radial mount. Maybe they're a tab mount. Radial mount's going to make the caliper a lot more rigid and stiff, so it gives you better pedal feel. We also will look at how much the caliper weighs. In a lot of cases, even on my older TL Type S, the caliper I took off was a good 4-piston aluminum caliper, but it was so much heavier than the super light caliper I put on.
Around how much heavier?
Oh, probably 1.5 pounds, 2 pounds. So then the other thing is, a lot of these late model cars, they're coming with a 1-piece hat rotor, which is great, but when we go to a 2-piece, now we're going to have thermal dissipation from the cast iron into the aluminum. And we're going to be saving all of this weight. Instead of it being steel, we're going to go to aluminum. Well, dissipating the heat into this hat is going to be better than when you've got a steel or a cast iron hat rotor, and that rotor is transferring all the temperature into the bearing assembly. People don't realize that all of these bearings start to get saturated with heat. So by going to a 2-piece hat rotor, we're now dissipating and shedding a bunch of that heat that's getting transferred into the bearing. So typically, even on this, which is our C8 package, we probably saved overall about 7 pounds a corner, which is a lot.
That's unsprung weight, right?
That's unsprung weight.
That's a huge savings.
Well, I don't know exactly what the number is, but let's just say it's 5 pounds, but it's also going to be on rotational because the 1-piece hat rotor is so much heavier than the 2-piece that we do on this.
That's incredible.
Hey everybody, thanks so much for stopping by. We're so thankful to have a relationship with Koenig and doing so many different projects with them throughout the years. Their wheel products are all so great and we love working with them. Thanks so much.